Hey, everybody. We're doing conversation number 41 here with Josiah Neely and me, Razib Khan. I guess the first thing is, you know, uh, today, was it today or yesterday? Yesterday, as of recording, it came out that Joseph Robinette Biden, the former president, he's still, well, president, I think you still call him president, but, the last president before Donald J. Trump right now, he has stage 4 colon cancer. But the key is it has metastasized. I mean, it's gotten into the cancer cell lines have gotten into bone,
Wow.
which is bad. So someone, I think, Ken Kupenstein, investigative journalist, left wing investigative journalist, estimates like a survival rate of 32% after 5 years. Biden is what, like he's 82 now, 81, 82. So I mean, honestly, his life expectancy at 5 years is,
It's not great to begin with.
yeah. I mean, it's not, he could have died of a lot of things. But they say that like the type of cancer that he has is pretty good with hormonal treatments, and like it's not unreasonable to have like 10 years. It's never going to get cured because it's gotten into the bone. They can't reverse it. They can only like slow the progression.
Yeah.
But he is 82, so
Right.
they don't. I mean, the thing with, one thing that people say about prostate cancer, just so which obviously affects the prostate in males, is that all males, by the second half of their life have like incipient prostate cancer supposedly, but most of us just die first of other things. So, this is something that's kind of, highly likely if you live a really, really, really long time. Biden's like a little younger, I think, I think there's like a curve where there's like some people who have like a family predisposition, they tend to get it early, and then there's like a flat rate, and then as you get like older, it just starts manifesting itself because you're just old enough that it's spread enough. I think Biden is kind of like not so old that you would automatically assume it to spread, but in any case, prognosis is not great, and you
So what,
know
I just want to say, are you saying then that Trump has prostate cancer? Is that
I mean, from that, I mean, I'm not an expert on that sort of stuff. I'm just But basically, like, you don't call it prostate cancer until it, like, reaches a certain number of
certain
cancer
level?
cells that have metastasized. So it's just that part of the body is prone to this, and so it might be a low level, and you're gonna die of heart disease and other cancer, whatever, first. If we all live to 120, apparently, like, most of us who are male would get it. Something like that is what I heard.
Although I do believe it's the case that with Trump, the doctors looked at his DNA and it wasn't DNA, it was USA. So I don't know if that affects the
Uh,
his
let's
ability to
let's
prostate cancer.
let's not try to, like, hit it out of the cringe meter park, okay? Yeah? Just give me some advice there. But, I mean, okay, I guess the brass tacks though is, a lot of people, including Rahm Emanuel's brother and some other doctors, urologists, oncologists. I mean, it's possible, but they're basically saying the probability is really low that they didn't know something was going on
Right.
during the presidency. He was president. I mean, about like, is it like 6 months ago? Well, I mean, no, because he was president until January 20th. So, yeah,
Anyway, yeah.
it was less than 6 months ago. He was still president. I mean, we know he almost certainly had it. The question is whether it was detected, which like it should have been in his PSA screening, I think, protest, whatever, like screening. So, this is timed with the new book. What is that book called by Jake
Original
Top?
sin.
Yeah, yeah. And like, okay, what I said on Twitter, I've been talking for a while, so I'll let Josiah go. But like, what I said on Twitter is like, it's one of those things where it's like, all right, everyone knew the Biden was not competent. Everyone knew that everyone knew Biden wasn't competent. Everyone knew the media was lying. The media knew it was lying. And then, if, after Biden was reelected or not elected, and he was not elected because he dropped out, um, I always predicted that after the election, when the dust had cleared, they would do a quote expose of the big cover up. And I'm just like, okay, but like, no one believed the cover up.
Right. Well, did they or did they not? I mean, that's the question. A lot of people in the media insist that really they had no idea until uh, June of 2024 when they had the debate performance and the scales fell from their eyes. Um, I will say so this cancer thing is new, right? In a sense, like this is a new revelation of another potential health cover up. I was reminded, I think it was Julie Kelly, I don't know. Someone on X posted a video back in 2022. Biden at a press conference just kind of blurted out that he had cancer. You may remember this. I remember it at the time. And then, later they said, "Oh, he misspoke. It was a gaffe or whatever." He's talking about something else. Well, okay. I mean, as it turns out, he does have cancer. He undoubtedly had cancer at the time. Is it is it plausible that he didn't know that he had cancer? I mean, I think that's a key piece of evidence that he did know. We know that he was covering up, other medical issues. Uh, so yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy. I remember when Biden was running for president in 2019, and I had a conversation with a very well-known liberal journalist, nationally known liberal journalist, private conversation. And he was talking about, he was worried that Biden might not even make it to the 2020 election. You know, I mean, he was saying, well, if they nominate him, like what happens if you nominate someone and then they die before the election or before inauguration or whatever, which has happened once in American history with Horace Greeley in 1872, I believe, who made it to election day, but then died before the electoral vote count. So it's just a little trivia tidbit. But anyway, at that point, it seemed. I mean, see, like it's obvious. You see the guy speak, and you just compare him to how he was in 2016, 2015 when he was vice president. He had a very severe decline. I mean, that's just very obvious. But people didn't want to talk about it. The media, because he was seen as necessary in order to defeat Trump, uh, they felt that they had to like kind of close ranks. And you had this really asinine stuff of where when people would criticize Biden, they would talk about how, oh, he's got a stutter. This is the part that I felt most insulted my intelligence is when people would say, Biden would give some sort of like fumbled, mumbled, incoherent stream of consciousness answer to something, and people would say, well, he's had a stutter. He struggled all his life with a stutter. Joe Biden, I think he was a senator since before I was born. He was just in the Senate for like, I don't know, 40 years, something like
Since
that.
no, since 70, was it 71 or 70 or something?
Well, it wouldn't have been 71. Well, I guess maybe. I I think it might have been
70, 73, 73 to
73.
2009.
Yeah, he was
He was elected in
elected.
72, but yeah.
Yeah, he was elected. The Constitution requires that you have to be 30 years old to be a senator, and he was when he was elected, he was actually still 29, right? Because I think his birthday is in like late November, December, something like that. So he turned 30, just right before he became a senator, and so he was just a senator for 4 years. Anyway, I mean, he was in the news, and he had a reputation that had to do with his words, but it was not being a stutterer. He was actually kind of known as a loudmouth, a blatherer, someone who would say, would blurt out inappropriate things, right? Just talk on and on, drone on and on. It's the opposite of being a stutterer. And then once he starts to have clear signs of cognitive decline, then that's kind of you. That was one of the things that was used as a kind of defense of him, you know? So there are even now, people will say in the media that they didn't know. They will insist on it. Even this Jake Tapper book, I have not read the book, but from what I've heard about the book, I mean, on the one hand, like it's interesting in that there's a lot of clear stuff that internally in the White House people really knew how bad the decline was, but there's a sense in which it sounds like the book itself perpetuates the cover up because there's kind of two phases of the cover up. There was the White House cover up, and then there's the media cover up. And this book as I understand it, kind of gives the idea that, oh, we in the media didn't know because they were lying to us, right? But
Mhm.
that's just absurd because A, the American people who only saw things filtered through the media, they were able to figure it out. They didn't have like one-on-one interactions with Biden. They weren't talking with White House people off the record. They didn't have any of that stuff, and yet it was still plainly obvious. And then we're supposed to believe that the media, who did have access to all that stuff, right? Somehow they didn't know. So yeah, I mean, this is, I don't think we've come to grips with. I mean, the media's reputation was already in tatters. People already didn't trust the media even before all this. But this really is kind of like a huge credibility scandal. I would say it's almost more of a scandal for the media than it even is for the White House, right? I mean, it is a scandal for the White House or whatever, but those people are basically gone now.
Yeah.
Biden's not there, all of his staff were there. The media people are all still there. Jake Tapper's still there. All the MSNBC, all the ABC, all the CNN people, they still have their jobs. They're still coming on TV every day and purporting to give us the unbiased news. And there really hasn't been any reckoning for them. You know,
Mhm.
None of them, as far as I know, has said, you know, even I'm sorry, right? Except for
Yeah.
maybe like Matt Iglesias or whatever.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of like a huge. That's something that is going to keep coming back and back and back on them. I suspect, um, for a long, long time. That like why? I mean, why should you trust what the media says about anything if they're covering up, such a clear. I mean, it's beyond like I mean, beyond covering up because they actually were not doing a great job of covering it up since everybody who was watching knew. But I think it just goes to show is that whether, yeah, I mean, it's apparatchik behavior basically. They viewed their role as covering for Biden because they didn't like the Republicans, they didn't want the Republicans to win, and I don't know. I mean, that's the situation you find yourself in. It's not good. It's not good.
Well, okay, so, I think I'm gonna say a couple things. I don't remember what her name is because I don't watch TV news. There was a woman, I think it was, like, was it the fall of 2023 or it was fall of 2023. It was before, like, the primaries had started, and she said something, I mean, she basically just said, like, "Yeah, Biden seemed like he's not all there mentally,"
Right.
and, other people had said that, like, like, I think Michelle Goldberg apparently wrote something in the New York Times in 2022 he shouldn't run, but, basically, she was attacked by everyone in the media for saying
Right.
such a thing,
Right.
and she's basically like, "This is what I saw," right? So that's one thing. The second thing that I have to say is, the way I think a lot of us know it, okay, partly it just seems a little off, but really the people I believe are those who've had family members go through dementia or Parkinson's or
Yeah.
whatnot. They
Yeah.
see mannerisms and behavior patterns that we just don't see. So I had multiple friends whose parents were severe, like very ill and dementia and all these other things, and they're just like, yeah, you could just see Biden walking around and talking, and it's just like it's just painful, it's way too similar. Do people in the media not have friends who have seen this happen to their parents?
Right.
Has nobody in the media seen people seeing their parents do this? So I really do think like either they're retarded or they're liars.
Right.
Right? You've literally convinced yourself to the point where you do believe it because there's no way you don't know people. All of you don't know people and have never had people who have declined like this. It sounds like
Yeah.
just from talking to people, like every third person I know is like, yeah, you can just tell just by looking at them.
Right. Right. Here's another element which my understanding is this is also not covered in the Jake Tapper book, but it's just in the law there's this concept, res ipsa loquitur. The thing speaks for itself, right? There's some things that you don't. They're so obvious that you don't need in court to prove via evidence, right? Because it's just an obvious implication of what you do know to be true. So pretty much in the entire history, I think, of presidential debates, the presidential debates happen in October or maybe in late September, right? They happen right before the election.
Mhm.
In 2024, Biden's team scheduled a debate for him with Donald Trump in late June, right?
Before the
Before
nomination.
before the nomination, right? So there was still time, um, and they had scheduled. I mean, this is another interesting thing is they had scheduled the nomination very late. Normally the nominating conventions happen a little bit earlier, and it ended up the fact that they scheduled it so late ended up causing problems for them because it was actually beyond the deadline of Ohio of when you needed to submit your ballot names or whatever. That ended up getting worked out, but so someone clearly decided, okay, we need to have an unprecedented early debate, and they had all sorts of reasons for why they needed to do that, but if you were in the Biden White House and you knew that he was not going to be able to make it and you wanted to force him out, like this is the obvious, like it's obvious that that's what happened. Someone decided, hey, look, we need to break through. Let's have this debate. It'll be visible to the whole world. And it's also, I mean, it's not even like, uh, I mean, they knew, I think this, I think is in the Tapper book when they were doing debate prep, you know, for this one debate, it would be like going horribly, and then Biden would like he would like take a nap in the middle of the debate or debate prep or something like that. So they knew, you know, that it was going to be like a horrible performance for Biden, right? Maybe Biden didn't realize this, but whoever, his team clearly knew that, and they could have, if they really um if it was not an attempt to force him out, right, they could have just come up with some excuse to cancel it, right? They say, "Oh, he's got a cold." That's what they said afterwards. He's got a cold. There's some, there's matters of state, right? Or I'm not gonna dignify Trump because he said, whatever. So they could have done that. They obviously didn't do that. So clearly, there was a concerted effort within the Biden White House to try to force him out in that way. The details of that I feel like are very interesting, both for contemporary politics and for history. So that I mean that's still an unanswered question, but like even something as basic as that, if you can't, if you can't get the details on that, like the real story just hasn't been told. I would say.
Yeah, there's just so many surreal moments. I mean, I we know each other in real life. So, it's just like part of like everyday discourse. In our circles at least, but I think in most American circles, like it's weekend at Biden's. Like he's not there. Everyone knew, and like they're just kind of like pretending like they could bluff their way through it. After that debate, after that horrible debate, Biden stood up there with this like at a rally with Jill, and she was praising him like he was a toddler. First of all, she was like, "You did such a good job. You answered all the questions." Okay, so first that was strange, and then
Yeah.
he sat there, or he stood there, and he just was like,
Yes. Right. Right. Yeah.
"Do
He
you
had his
remember?"
he has this kind of like comatose face, like he's like a puppet that's been turned off or whatever.
I mean, he's obviously had some bad face work, I think, in terms of
Sure.
Botox or something. There's things going on there, but still, um, this is the world's worst kept secret. I don't really understand why the media is like promoting the book partly because they want not absolution, but they want to pretend like, oh, they're onto it now. They get it,
Right.
But it's like
Right.
please don't everyone point out that you were basically engaging in a cover up for like years and years,
Yeah.
more and more because he obviously had degraded. I will say, I didn't mention this, but you know, even in the 2020 campaign, many reporters would just say Biden looks like a death's door. Like they don't think he's gonna make it.
Yeah.
You know?
He looked pretty bad, and he also I mean, he had a big advantage because of COVID that they had an excuse where I mean, he did not do that much campaigning, he didn't do a lot of events or rallies or whatever. Um, so, I mean, he did do I think did they do one debate? I think they only did one debate because then Trump got COVID, and, so they canceled the other debates or whatever. Um And yeah, I mean, it wasn't great then, but even I mean, there would continue to be noticeable decline from 2020 onward.
Mhm.
Like it was already a very bad situation in 2020, but like it just continued to get worse and worse and worse. Um,
Well, I mean, I think one thing I want to say about this issue with the age and the health is, I don't think we can really trust these doctors of any of the presidents.
right.
Um, I mean, Reagan probably did have early stage Alzheimer's in a second term at some point,
Yeah.
and then Kennedy,
JFK.
yeah, Kennedy had like serious illnesses. Biden obviously is not. He's not well. This is just too many people in the last 50 or 60 years. I mean, these are the ones we know. There could have been other things that just didn't come to light. Um, and so, what do we do about this? I think one thing that people have been mentioning is, um, Barack Hussein Obama. He picked Biden because he was too old to kind of
Yeah.
be like his heir. So it was like just a good compliment. Well, reality is like no, that's not what Biden thought. So that was a mistake. And then Biden picked Kamala Harris because he, made a bargain with the Black Caucus and Black politicians in the Democratic Party
Right.
for their support in 2020. He was going to nominate for his VP a black woman. So he picked Kamala Harris. And, she's just not a very good politician. She doesn't think on her feet. She has no inner core. I think that's one of the big issues why she has a hard time responding to people and she just kind of babbles. So, Biden was not really a suitable successor. And Kamala Harris is not a suitable successor.
Yeah.
So, but these presidents, they have bad health, a lot of them.
Yeah.
We will almost certainly get one who dies in office soon enough, I think. I mean, this is just like if Biden, look, if he had gotten reelected somehow, which that's possible, there's a high chance that he would die in this
Right.
term,
Right.
you know? So Scott Adams, the Dilbert columnist, former erstwhile Dilbert columnist, he just declared that he has the same type of cancer as Biden, and he's saying, he's going to check out this summer. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I think I'm a huge fan of JD Vance, as we know,
mhm.
but
Me too, me too.
the U.S. vice presidency in general is a kind of ticking time bomb because it's a position that not only is there very little in the way of accountability in terms of who becomes president, I mean, vice president. It's basically whoever the president chooses becomes the vice president, and there's not really a lot of uh, feedback or the way that mechanisms the way that there is for any other office. Um, and then both because I mean the nature of the position, and then also because of the presidency, you tend to the tendency is for presidents to pick people who are not a threat to them, right? Or they're picking them for reasons where they're actually not suited to be president, right? They're suited for some secondary role, but I mean Cheney, like in different ways, Dick Cheney, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Dan Quayle, all these people were picked uh, for reasons that were like independent of and in some ways contrary to
I,
the ability
I,
to actually serve as
I gotta say
president.
about Dick Cheney, he's 84. He's 2 years older than Biden. He's probably not doing well, but okay, this mofo, like heart attack in 1978, age 37, 1984, 1988, November 22nd, 2000, February 22nd, 2010. He went for bypass in 88, blah blah blah, cardio defibrillator in 2001. Like this guy, okay, there's just too much to read here.
Right.
I mean, I think he had a transplant, didn't he? He has a transplant, didn't he?
I think probably. I mean, he's probably got everything that you could.
Yes, he did.
I,
2012. He went through a transplant.
and I mean,
Um,
yeah, Cheney's big problem is not health necessarily, although he did have some serious health problems himself. But it's more like him as president. I don't he's not really a presidential figure, I would say.
no, no, no.
And those guys, I mean, if you look historically, we have had, I would say, some very close calls with the vice presidency. In the 1940s, when FDR was president, he was also on death door when he was running again in 1944 for his fourth term. He was like, similarly, I mean, probably even to a greater degree, his ill health was kept from the American public. And his vice president at the time, Henry Wallace, at that time was basically Henry Wallace was not a communist, but he was surrounded by actual communists and was very pro appeasement of communism, you know. So if FDR had died earlier, like 6 months earlier, or if, you know, in that case, he was so checked out that the party was able to replace Wallace as the VP candidate with Harry Truman, you know, very easily
Yeah.
you can see in a situation where things could have gone disastrously wrong.
Yeah.
And, you know, there are other points in American history where if you just look at who the vice president was, um, I mean, you know, John C. Calhoun was vice president, you know, during the nullification crisis, right? Andrew Jackson, you know, like to get into fights or what, you know, you could easily see like if Jackson had croaked or had died, someone had shot him or whatever. Calhoun's, the United States could have broken apart. You know, there's a lot of like this is why I say it's a ticking time bomb. I don't JD Vance, I do think is a plausible presidential successor to Trump, and if God forbid something were to happen to Trump, either health wise or you know, violence wise, people have been known to take shots at him. I think I think we would be fine. I think he could take over. But in general, you get a lot of kind of duds in that role, and you know, they say like heartbeat away. That's that's pretty scary, you know? That's pretty scary. So
Yeah.
I don't know how exactly you address that in our system, but it does seem like it's probably one of the big vulnerabilities that our system has in terms of like, you know, how things could go wrong. So as you've noted in the past, Razib, I have a pessimistic frame of mind. I think about
Oh,
these
good.
dark
I
scenarios.
mean, I think I swing both ways. I don't think you could say I'm an optimist or a pessimist. I think I try to prepare for the worst, but I hope for the best. So, some of us are a happy medium. Okay, so, speaking of health, the DNA testing company 23andMe
Yeah.
has been purchased by Regeneron, which is it's a pharmaceutical company basically, and they do a lot of trials for drugs. They hire a lot of geneticists and biochemists and all these people. And this was a big deal, I think, culturally because 23andMe actually did, um, you know, it did create personal. I mean, if it had succeeded, it would have been like Google insofar as you'd be like, Google that. It would be like,
Mm,
get that
mhm.
23 and Mead.
Right.
Okay. So Ancestry DNA, which is a DNA branch of Ancestry.com, which is the genealogical company, they actually have more kits out there. I think they have 30 million, 23andMe has 15 million. Part of it is like the number of kits sold is almost a direct linear proportion of your marketing spend. And so,
Mm,
it just depends on how much marketing they want to do. In any case, and the kits for Ancestry are lost leader. But 23andMe still has the brand. It has the brand in
yeah.
personal genomics, partly because it's been around forever. It was started, I think, in like 2006. So I know Linda Avey, one of the co-founders, personally. She lives in Austin now. I worked for her when she lived in San Francisco. She was pushed out into 2010, and by board coup, orchestrated by Anne Wojciechowski, Sergey Brin's ex-wife, who basically took over the company,
Well,
made it her thing.
I thought, well, maybe that Nicole Sheridan, is she not
She is also
also?
Sergey Brin's
Okay.
ex-wife.
All right, fair enough, fair enough.
And you know what? Like Sergey Brin's ex-wives are very ambitious. He likes ambitious women. Yeah, so I mean, there's a backstory here. I think I can tell this. Like Linda told me, so I forget who the guy is actually. He's kind of been written out of history. She actually had a different co-founder, a male, and they were pitching to Sergey, and Anne
Mhm.
wanted to get in on this. She liked the idea, and I think co-founder in startup world. It's not an official title. It's not like CEO. You don't have fiduciary duties or whatever. It's just kind of informal. Like, are you or aren't you a co-founder? So Aaron Swartz, some of you may know, he committed suicide like 15 years ago, I think now. But in any case, he's co-founder of Reddit, I think. But like, there's arguments about whether he really was a co-founder because his company was acquired. Anyway, I don't want to get into it. Anne and Linda are seen as the co-founders, two, attractive, blondish women. Um, in Silicon Valley, they created a brand with certain color scheme with a particular company, and they want to project it kind of like a happy, positive brand, kind of detached a little way from like how the pharmaceutical, medical, blue gunmetal, look aesthetic.
Did
Uh,
they speak with a fake deep voice? Did they speak
No.
they deep voices? Okay, alright,
Nope,
just
nope,
curious.
it was before all that, it was before all that, it was
Okay,
before all
alright.
that. But they actually wanted to okay, I don't know this for a fact, because I haven't asked Linda this, so this is not, like, from inside knowledge, but the perception in tech and biology and the value is they actually wanted to lean into the 2 female founders and,
Right.
the girls are here and,
Yes.
part of the issue is just, like, DNA and sequencing or genotyping, it's not sequencing, but it's genotyping, was scary to a lot of people and novel, and so they really, really pioneered this sector. There were like only like, I think I was probably like I was definitely like they had less than 100,000 customers when I first did their started doing their products in 2010. So they had less than 100,000. It was like $600 usually. You could get a $300 discount. I got it during discount. I got it from me. And anyway, my point is they pioneered this. They created the brand. They kind of created the sector. Now there's other companies in the sector. Ancestry, most prominently, Family Tree DNA is still there. So a couple of other companies. There's various companies doing it because like the data is cheap. It's all about the analytics now. The
Right.
problem was, hope you enjoyed the podcast so far. To listen to the rest of it, please go to conversation.substack.com.
Two minds met on a summer's eve, each with truths they long believed. Words flowed like a winding stream as hours passed in deep debate. And after all was said and done, they found a thread of common ground. In listening close, they came to see a shared humanity. They spoke of justice, spoke of change, of history's weight and future's range. Their views at first seemed worlds apart, but patience bridged the divide. And after all was said and done, they found a thread of common ground. And listening close, they came to see a shared humanity. They spoke of justice, spoke of change, of history's weight and future's range. Their views at first seemed worlds apart, but patience bridged the divide. It's not about who's wrong or right, but understanding others' light. In civil discourse we can find ties that gently bind. And after all was said and done, they found a thread of common ground. And listening close, they came to see a shared humanity. As dawn broke soft on dewy grass, they smiled and shook hands at last. Two souls enriched by reason talk, united in respect. And after all was said and done, they found a thread of common ground. And listening close, they came to see a shared humanity. This folk song captures the essence of a long, thoughtful discussion between two public intellectuals. It emphasizes the power of patient listening, mutual respect, and the discovery of common ground. gentle tone reflects the calm and understanding they reach after their debate. Would you like me to expand